Hey all. So this is again one of the first wars that I've really participated in this off-season. We actually plan to full clear this one, and I'm bringing in Killmonger with the Defiance tactic. So really happy to try that out. And I'm also trying Odin in a few fights. And this is going to be an interesting one because this thing has really caused some problems. Like there are a number of good counters, but I've seen issues with this one. And Odin really is a really solid counter because his one hit heavies allow him to manage rock stacks really well, and he just does a really solid amount of damage with a relatively low number of crits. Notice that we haven't really been proccing protection here. However, I am going to make a mistake, and I think it's mostly because of input issues, but you'll see pretty quickly. So anyway, we're doing our best. He does have recoil on, so that is affecting some of the damage, but the right there, that was just a flat out mistake. I thought I was going to hit his block. Oh, okay, so that's what it was. Yeah, I thought I was going to hit his block, and the AI caught me. Now I'm in trouble because right there, I intercepted. I could have, as soon as I intercepted, landed that first hit, I had 2 rock stacks left. I could have thrown the special 2. And it would have put him at 15, would have done a good amount of damage. I would have been good to go. Instead, I wasn't confident in my rock stacks, and I instead finished the combo, got backed up again, and ended up throwing the special 3. So I'm fine waiting out this unstoppable. I'm going to be able to, like I said, one hit heavy gives him a lot of power. I'm not worried. See, right there, I'm a little worried because I should have hit into the block twice. But I'm not terribly worried about getting him to 15 again. But here's the problem. Now that I've thrown the special 3, my attack value is really, really high, like around 10,000. Which means that my attacks are proccing protection a lot. So basically, every time I crit, he's turning on protection, and that's dramatically slowing down this fight. If I had been able to, if I had just not hit into what I thought was his block that one time, I wouldn't have gotten backed up. If I had rescued it with the special 2, then I wouldn't have had to throw the special 3. Either of those would have made this a pretty quick fight, because with only 1 heavy and True Strike, Odin is in a good spot for, even when he has the heavy from knocking thing down, he does good damage. But with the extra fury, we're just running into protection. Which means that because he's not at 20 rock stacks, because that only happens if we get ourselves parried or hit into his block a lot, we don't have to worry about doing no damage. So we are going to take this down. But what could have been a 2-minute fight is now a dramatically slower one. So it is what it is. I don't regret using Odin here. I think it is a good proof of concept. I've actually assigned Odin versus Thing in season on the second node in this exact path. I didn't take it, but it went very well for our player who did that. But I remember in season, I told them, don't use the special 3. It's too risky. You'll proc protection too much. I told them, knock him down, see how the fury works. If you're proccing protection a lot, then stop knocking him down. But if you're not proccing protection with only the node's fury and the one you start with, then just stick to that. Do not throw the special 3. And I am getting a truly beautiful taste of my own medicine in a sense here by proving myself right in the worst way possible. Oh well, I've fought Thing a lot over the years. I don't mind evading his unblockable special 1 in the corner. Like I said, this fight is fairly safe. It's just longer than it should have been. So then we move on to Miles here. This, I think, is just a textbook off-season assignment, because if the only way to knock Miles down were with a special, then this would be a solid placement because it would force a miscounter. But you can also knock Miles down with a heavy, and so that's just not a problem. Doing plenty of damage here. I mean, Killmonger against Miles has class advantage anyway. He does nothing to stop the bleed. If we can get True Strike up, we're fine. But I did take some extra damage there for no good reason because I wasn't paying attention to the protection coming off cooldown. Right there, that was absolutely an input issue. Same as against Thing, where like some of my dashbacks were just not working on the previous fight. I cleaned my iPad after these two because, yeah, I don't enjoy taking a full combo from Miles when most of it crits, funnily enough. Even through Killmonger's crit resistance. That was quite annoying. But that's okay. At the moment, the potion economy is still okay. We don't have to go into that whole thing right now. But like I said, we're just not throwing specials. We got True Strike off the heavy there. And then now we know we're doing plenty of damage here. I just activated Reverb by taking that on block through the special 3 to get the most possible out of Adrenaline for health back. And we're moving on. So this is Power Snack Kingpin, which, you know, before this tactic would have been a really bad idea with Killmonger, let's say. But now that we have this, and he's immune to buffs, super simple fight. We just bait out Kingpin's special 1s. We avoid the armors, like we don't hit into him when he's about to get an armor because he can go unstoppable, and that's it. So right there I realized, true to off-season fashion, I did forget that Killmonger is not metal and is not a hero, therefore he does not get the passive stuns, but that's okay, I don't need them. Because as soon as we get this first special going, actually I think I pushed the special 2 first for the Indestructibles because safety first. But as soon as that's done, we'll throw a special 1, and we'll have access to counterpunch charges, which gives us all of the openings we need. Like I said, we're going to really stick to baiting the special 1 as much as we can. The special 2 is not a death sentence here. I do know the evade. And hey, on cue, trigger backup recovery. So I'm glad I pushed to my special 2, because as much as you want to bait the special 1, it's safer. It is good to have that down. And we had the triple Indestructible charges, so even if the whole thing had hit us, would not have caused a problem. So notice how little health we've lost here. He does have willpower ticking away. Not all of our bleeds are sticking. But this is just super safe, with the exception of that one spot where I forgot that backup recovery was a thing. In season, if you're taking this, for one thing, you probably use an Indestructible boost for oopsies. Maybe you use a power start to make sure you get your Indestructible charges from his kit up sooner. That also works. But hopefully you're also a little more on, you're paying attention to the nodes, and you just bait out a special 1 before you do anything like throw a special 2 when he's that close to 50%, and then you completely bypass that problem. And then you're just left with what the rest of this fight is, which is a super simple hit them until they fall over Killmonger versus Kingpin fight. So now we're going to head on to Ebony Maw and Mixmaster, which again is a fight I would never, ever take with Killmonger without Defiance. But with it, Ebony Maw has a really easy to counter special 1, so I can get my True Strike up and hold on to it, so Mixmaster isn't a problem. And he's not going to put those special 1 Furies on me to then nullify. He's not going to be able to nullify my decks, so no degen. So basically, the only thing I have to do here is make sure I don't hit into him with Falter Up and miss. And this is simple. Now, I would like to knock him down a little more often than I am here. And honestly, I probably should have dueled for this a little differently, where I would stay close for the special 1 and throw my heavy in retaliation against it so that he wasn't triggering Falter at all. The Falter is helping us because it's giving us power, because it is a debuff. But it is slowing down the fight in a way that is less than ideal. And we could have avoided that if I was just more ready to counter his special 1s properly. Because with Power Focus 1, he has a ton of them. We have no worries about him throwing those. So he's giving us tons of openings I could be taking better advantage of. And if I end up taking this in season, I will make sure that I'm ready to do that. And then this will be even cleaner than it is here. Because the other thing to note with this fight is that he's about to go into Black Tongue here when he gets to 100 persuasion. And then I'm going to lose the ability to bypass the falter at all. But that's also not the end of the world, because notice that he's at 9%, and this is, remember, unboosted. So, definitely want to, in the actual season, make sure you're knocking him down as you go, because you're seeing the potential risk here. If his falters are too often, then it becomes difficult to get True Strike up, and you can get into a little bit of that feedback loop that I had there, but it was still a safe fight, unboosted, and if you make that one alteration I suggested, then it goes to a perfect fight. So I don't think I would hesitate to assign that. I would just have specific instructions. Another crazy fight for Killmonger to take here in Ikaris on Spite. But Spite isn't a problem because Killmonger has the Defiance node and can't gain buffs. Similarly, that annoying detonation debuff that Ikaris places on Killmonger, because it's a debuff, more power, easier to throw a special, and so easier to defuse it. Now, he is going to throw a lot of specials, but that's not a problem because we're not triggering Spite. So we can bait out these special ones as much as we want. This would obviously be, significantly longer in season because we wouldn't have the benefit of Liquid Courage ticking him down, but I really don't think it's a problem. You're gonna lose some health every time he throws a special unless you are using a champion that's only winning this fight with heavies, but that's just going to be a little tricky because of Rise to Power. There are a few champions, even a few Spite champions that can handle that. Parry heavy with Spider-Man 2099 is still better for that node than Killmonger. But, it's an option if this is what you want to, if this is what makes pathing easier. Because I would not send Spider-Man 2099 to this Spider Ham here, whereas Killmonger can take it quite easily. As normal with spam, we're trying to make sure we throw our special ones as soon as we get them to keep nonsense down. We have counter punches, but we're not really relying on those because he's just going to have enough power here between kinetic transference and aspect of evolution. Our whole goal here is just to make sure that we keep our True Strike up and retaliate against his specials. Liquid Courage on him is definitely taking him down faster, but again, class advantage, small health pool. Killmonger has more than enough damage to do that in season. So you notice I paused here to check the breakdown on how much the recoil tree masteries took off. It was about 40% of the total fight, which means in season that just would have lasted maybe half again as long. Not much to worry about. So here's where I test out a matchup that is a flat-out mistake. Because Odin against Warlock in a vacuum is great. He starts with 3 buffs, you throw 1 heavy, he has 4, boom, you're immune to infection. However, Warlock is somebody who can back you up at the best of times, and kinetic transference plus a passive unstoppable just make that worse. There's also another thing here which I did not really account for, and that is that kinetic transference gives him 10% power. But if there is a perfect block, it gives him 20% power. And Odin has one of the highest perfect block chances in the entire game, which is normally a good thing, but really, really is not here. So this was honestly just completely stupid on my part. Should have thought that through a bit more beforehand, but glad that I was testing that in off-season. Not that I ever would have assigned that in season. But then, we have a much better counter here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and use one of these level 2 revives because I never use those to bring Odin back up, because that's going to allow us to use his pre-fights on House of X, who will then have access to 4 buffs and the same ability to shut down infection entirely. And he's going to have a 70% chance to just turn off everything that Warlock does, especially Kinetic Transference. And so this next fight is going to be much, much prettier. So we do still have to worry about the stun immunity, but notice in that we basically blocked a whole combo here. Notice how little power he gained. Already so much better. We blocked those 2 hits, no power gained. Like this is what we want. This also is going to have a chance to stop his armor ups from the timer and therefore mean fewer unstoppable procs. And that's going to make things much easier for us as well, because it's just fewer things we have to wait out. So I think I probably, in an ideal world, would have thrown the special one before this. It would have removed his, his natural armor break, then our combos would have done more damage. But that's okay. We can wait out that Indestructible, throw this special too. See, that's the big issue, is that without having thrown the armor break recently, that special can't crit, and that takes out a lot of damage. So I think as nice as the degens are, if I were taking that in the future, I would just spam the special one. You bypass the Indestructible entirely, and you're going to end up doing more damage with even a couple crits. So then this fight right here is just clean up from another option that we were testing, didn't go particularly well, and decided to take that same House of X into this Ultron. We don't necessarily care about the special one here because it's Safeguard, but it does get that nice long armor break up, which means that when we do throw the special 2, it's going to give us 2 degens. And so that's going to do really solid work. Notice he is regenning a fair amount just from us hitting him, but the minute that we throw that special 2, he starts ticking down. Now that was a mistake. I just should not have messed around doing anything fancy that close to the evade timer. Got punished for it. But also notice how sometimes we are bypassing Safeguard, and then we throw the second special 2. He has no willpower as a robot. Boom, he's done. That ticks him down. And so that was my second off-season war. Trying out a few silly things, but also really happy with how the Killmonger testing went and with what I learned. I'm looking forward to Defiance as a tactic. I mean, it doesn't directly counter unstoppable armor, but then neither did the tactic last season. And I think this is really going to give us a lot of counterplay to some of the more problematic nodes and Mystic champions this season. And it should be interesting. So, war season starts in 2 days. Good luck to everyone. Until next time, thanks so much for watching, and take care.